Well, guys, my name's Alexandrea. I go by Dre. Either way suffices. But I am the Court Monitor Supervisor here at Catholic Charities. I help. Well, I run the program, the Court Monitor program. According to 1054.4 of the Texas Probate Statute, it is imperative that, and it's been here that I can never remember the population unit, but Bexar County actually supersedes that. Brownsville just to give you an idea of what the limited amount of population, Brownsville just made it. They also have to have the court visitor program, but according to the statute, it states that any county that exceeds a certain amount of population has to have a court visitor program. And what we do is we have partnered with the probate courts, Probate Court 1 with Judge Kazin and Probate Court 2 with Judge Veronica Vasquez. And we go and we visit and touch base with every single individual who is on a guardianship program between those two probate courts. So that is approximately 2,535 individuals that we are contracted to see this fiscal year. Now, as you guys can imagine, that number grows as our population grows. More and more people are being put under guardianship, and we're actually expected to see a surplus of individuals or an influx of individuals being put into guardianship as the baby boomers start to age out. So as you guys can imagine, there's more than one reason why an individual can be placed on guardianship. It doesn't have to just be Alzheimer's or dementia. It can also be things like IDD or sometimes even drug abuse. So there's a variety of reasons why an individual will be on that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start. So you guys can see this. Let's see. Sorry. So we can kind of get started with the PowerPoint. I don't want to take up anybody's time. We'll go ahead and leave any questions that you guys might have for the end. So the guardianship program. Let's see. What is a guardianship? A guardianship is a legal process that is designed to protect vulnerable persons from neglect, abuse, and exploitation. Like I said, this can be anybody over the age of 18 that would fall under this. We serve, like I said, individuals who are 18 and older who have been deemed incapacitated by a physician and is not able to make important decisions or handle their personal affairs. Why do people go under guardianship? Like I stated earlier, it's to protect them from abuse or exploitation. So those are things. And then power and duties of the guardian. So what happens is when an individual becomes a guardian, there are certain powers that they can obtain. Some of those include the right to choose where an individual lives. It is up to the guardian to decide where that person lives. So if the guardian doesn't like where an individual is living or who an individual is living with, they have the right to pull them out. Rights of the wards, these rights, they vary from case to case. Not everybody's going to have the same rights taken away from them. So I don't want you guys to think that every guardianship is exactly the same. There are certain aspects to the guardianships, the main core aspects that are going to be similar, but you're going to see some individuals who might have the right to drive. You might have some individuals who have the right to vote, while others individuals, those rights are completely taken away from them. So each one is kind of tweaked to be specific to that individual's case. So what does the Court Monitor program do? Well, Catholic Charities guardianship program, we maintain one of the main things is we maintain the confidentiality of the file on each client and protect contents from unauthorized personnel. So confidentiality is of course key. No client information will be disclosed in a form that identifies the person without a client's consent unless required by court order or for program monitoring by authorized personnel. So we're actually very careful of our raw data. And as you guys can imagine, you don't know who will be on a guardianship. Sometimes you do know who's in a guardianship, but you might come across somebody who's a family member's friend or something of that nature, open that file, and you're going to be getting who their doctor is. You're going to be seeing information about why they're diagnosed for that. So as you can imagine, there are reasons why confidentiality is key in keeping it in as well as not just for the individual's sake, but also for the sanctity of the program and Catholic Charities. A lot of you guys, I'm sure most of you guys know, Catholic Charities is a giant organization. We aren't just here in San Antonio. We have Catholic Charities USA. We are all over the US. So confidentiality is something that as a program, we are very, very strict about, and we take very, very seriously. So just keep that in mind. And with confidentiality, I will be giving you guys, when we meet up, we will be, because of everything going on with COVID, you are not expected to be in the office. If you'd like to work here in the office, we do have some spots. Just to limit exposure, I was hoping that I can go ahead and meet you guys somewhere, even if it's here at the office in the parking lot, and I can always give you your files and then you return them back when you are ready. So that's just a thought. If, like I said, the office is open, you are more than welcome to work here. But as we see cases increasing, we are trying to kind of limit how many people are in the office so we can limit exposure. It's what you're comfortable with. So that's that. Duties of a court monitor. Your duty is to investigate the ward's well-being, monitor guardians' involvement in the ward's life, complete assessment of the ward's home environment, document ward's daily activities and hobbies, complete court monitor report to probate court judges. And so we're not, because of COVID, we're not able to drive anywhere. So before you were able to submit timesheets and mileages forms. However, unless you're going to the courthouse first, that's the only time you would need to submit a timesheet or mileage form. The commonly visited homes are group homes, private homes, and foster homes. These are homes that are usually in neighborhoods. So their group homes consist of about 3 individuals living in a home usually. There's probably about there's always one person who's one of those people is usually somebody who works for the group home. So they'll be the group home manager or some sort. Sometimes they live on site with them, and it's also something where they have an individual who has shift work. So they might have somebody working there for 8 hours while they're sleeping, and they're actually up. That's kind of the dynamic with a group home. Group homes usually consist of, like I said, 3 or more people, and they're all pretty much within the same similar capacity. So as you can imagine, there are individuals who are on guardianship who might have the intellectual capacity of a 7-year-old, and there are some that might have a 2-year-old. There might be somebody who are older who might have the capacity of a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. So, but they're 40 years old. So with group homes, when you go to one or when you visit one, you'll see more than one person, and they're all grouped within the same intellectual capacity. So somebody who has an intellectual capacity of a 7-year-old is not going to be in the same group home as an individual who has an intellectual capacity of a 2-year-old. They like to keep them all kind of in the same. There are several different group homes within the city and the Bexar County area. I want to say there's close to over 200, if not more. That's kind of just giving it a low guesstimate. There are different private homes. These are homes where they might live with a family member or their mother, their father, aunt, uncle, cousin, somebody who just lives there with them. It'll be kind of like, like you live at home. There's foster homes, which are individuals who live with somebody who is a foster mother or a foster provider. You can think of this as similar to a foster care. Usually they stay with them for quite some time. Foster homes are interesting. I absolutely love them. They're individuals who have stepped up within the community who decided, yes, I'm going to take care of this individual because they need this one-on-one time and they can't live with their guardian for whatever reason. With that being said, wards do not have to live with their guardian. However, a guardian is mandated to see them at least once a quarter. So that's something to think about. And kind of just keep in the back of your mind. Another familiar type of home is nursing and assisted living homes. These are different because there's a difference between the two. With nursing homes, clients are not able to live independently and require nursing and residential care. These are These are different from hospice as well. You'll have some individuals who live in hospice, but these are like your ideal nursing homes. Now, some people who live in nursing homes aren't just elderly. So I want you guys to not have that idea. Sometimes you'll see they'll have waivers where an individual will have some type of memory problem, or they might have some type of IDD problem. They might have cerebral palsy, and instead of living in an assisted living because they can't be fairly independent, they'll live in a nursing home. I've seen a couple of times where there might be somebody who's bipolar schizoaffective, which schizoaffective is having bipolar and schizophrenia, if nobody's familiar with that. And they might also be on a waiver where they might have to be on in a memory care area because they need the lockdown. So some facilities are able to offer certain needs to individuals. That's like a nursing home. They're a little bit more less independent individuals that live there. So assisted livings are for clients who are fairly independent and can get through the day by themselves. With that, there is another type of assisted living that I'd like to touch base on, and that is San Antonio Living Facility. We do visits with individuals who are over at SASH. So those are state schools. So the state school is separated between two campuses. One of those is hospitals, and the other is going to be a living facility. We like to call that the campus. It's called the state school. So there's a state hospital and a state school on one campus over on the south side. That is over off New Braunfels. You guys won't be traveling there, but I just want to give you guys an idea of where it is in the city. So it's there, and it's separated in between two. So they do have that as well. So assisted livings are, once again, not just for elder people who are looking for retirement. I want you guys to also think that they're for individuals who are deemed incapacitated. They have these different kinds of them. So this is, the little header's gone. This is for when you guys are calling. So when you guys call, I want you guys to take on the role as a court monitor and not a volunteer. Whenever you call them, just let them know, hi, my name is, hello, my name is Dre. I'm with Catholic Charities. I'm a court monitor that has been appointed by Bexar County to visit with insert individual's name here. And I was calling to schedule his or her yearly court visit. We are only allowed to conduct virtual visits right now. At this time due to COVID, are you familiar with any of the following platforms? WhatsApp, FaceTime, Zoom, or Duo? If they don't have a platform, which, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, we are also being heavily affected by individuals or people within the city in the Bexar County area not having it. Some of them just don't have the capacity to actually do a Zoom meeting. Some of these guardians are older. They're seeing individuals who are on the program who are wards who are in their 50s. So their parents are in this guardianship and they're 86. They're in their 90s. So some of them aren't familiar with WhatsApp or FaceTime, Zoom, or Duo, and they might have the actual technological capability. However, they don't have the technological capacity to do this. So you'll see this a couple of times. As you can imagine, we are also being affected the way that school districts are being affected. Some individuals, they just can't afford to have a smartphone right now, or they can't afford to have the internet. So that's totally understandable. What we are asking is if they have a loved one whom they are comfortable with going into the home with. It's important to ask this because the judges are wanting to see if there's any way. If the judges want to know if we have exhausted every effort in order to get these individuals seen, because we want to keep them in compliance with their guardianships, even though we are going through this crazy time right now. So ask them if they have a loved one in the home or someone who can come and visit that they are comfortable with to conduct this virtual visitation. You can give them up to 2 months. If they do not have one, they don't have a loved one to come, they don't have any form or anybody to help them with this visit, you can actually do a phone visit with them. That's totally fine. As long as you listen in on and you talk to the ward and kind of hear them breathing, that's fine. And in the back of the report, you'll just notate this individual was not seen via Zoom or any platforms. They do not have the capability asked the criteria. They do not have a loved one able to do this. So that's something as well. The judges are being very, I don't want to say lenient, but they're very understanding. They understand that we are being affected just like school districts. We are trying to keep a track of everybody. Some people don't have the capacity. They don't have the economic ability to. So we're trying to work with them as best as we can. So when you come to this point, I'd like for you guys to think about that as well. Conducting a visit. Scheduling an appointment is required, especially for a nursing home right now. Sorry, guys. This isn't except for a nursing home. It's actually especially for nursing homes. We are also noticing that nursing homes, group homes, they're kind of having difficulty because they're so short-staffed and they are front lines that it is kind of difficult. So be patient with them. As you can imagine, they're very short-staffed. They're very limited on who can come in, who can't. So just keep that in mind. Go ahead and verify the address as well. Sorry, my allergies are. Review the exterior of the home and check for any hazards. This is super important. I know it's very difficult because you guys are doing a virtual visitation, but just keep an eye out for the things that are in the background. Look for things that don't really make sense. And we'll go over that a little bit more. Pay attention to your surroundings. This is still important even though we are not going to the home. Pay attention to your surroundings and the things that are in the background of those individuals, because that's gonna tell tale. We've noticed that a lot of individuals aren't being able to, they aren't really showing you everything. So in a nice way, let them know, I would like to see the whole home. You might have to kind of be IT. I have noticed that with some people, where I have to tell them they have to flip the camera over because they don't quite understand how to flip the camera on phones. They'll be just kind of flipping the phone around and thinking that they're showing you everything. It's cute. It reminds me of, kind of helping out my grandma every once in a while doing FaceTimes. So just be patient with them when you're doing that. You're going to want to speak with both the guardian or the provider and the ward. Like I said, some individuals don't live with their guardian. Some individuals live with their, in a foster home or assisted living. So they might have a case manager as their provider. They might have a QIDP as their provider, but you're going to want to meet with both. You have to get visual of the ward unless you're doing the phone. And you have to get the information for the report from the guardian. The reason being for that is because obviously the wards on guardianship, they're not going to be able to help you out. They might not, some of them might not, some of them can. Some of them surprisingly can go ahead and answer most of the questions. And some individuals, they have no idea when the last time they went to the doctor was. So just keep that in mind. You want to communicate with the ward. This is always my favorite part. I love talking to them. The wards have the sweetest hearts. They're such great individuals. It's an awesome marginalized group to be working with. So yeah, you want to touch base with them. You want to make sure that they're doing okay. I always ask them, how do they like their living arrangement? Is everything okay? Is everything, safe? Do they like it? And you can kind of get an idea by doing that communication, how they feel. That's important too, because those are signs that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. So just keep that in mind. Ask questions using the report as a guideline. We're going to go over the report here in a little bit. It's pretty easy. Everything you need to cover is there. There are different ways to gather that information. If you want to just ask them straightforward how it is, you can. Personally, I always have a conversation, and just as the conversation comes, I just kind of fill out the report. And then at the end of the conversation, just make sure that I'm not missing anything. So it's how it works. I also have the report memorized, so that might be kind of easier. So when you are touring the home with your Zoom camera, or with not Zoom, but with your virtual platform, whichever one they use, you're gonna want to look for the smoke alarms. I always ask them to show me the smoke alarm so I can see if the green dot Usually there's that green light that's blinking that indicates that it's working. I just ask to see if I can check that. If it's not blinking or I can't see that it's blinking, I ask for them to test it. If it is a nursing home or an assisted living facility, you don't have to ask them for the smoke alarm. They have to get audited monthly by the state, so they should be good. You're going to want to check out the ward's bedroom and the ward's bathroom. When you're looking in that, you're going to want to be looking in their closet, keeping an eye out to make sure that they have sufficient amount of clothing, that the clothing is appropriate for the weather and the season that we're in. So if you're going through and all you see is short sleeve shirts, but it's 56 degrees outside, 46 degrees outside, that's going to be kind of a key, wondering where, or are there any jackets, or are there any long sleeves? If you just see shorts, are there any jeans? Are there any sweats? Something to keep him warm. You want to keep an eye out for that. Make sure that the clothing is not, when you're looking in the closet, make sure that clothing is not worn out. It's being, kept up with, especially in group homes, because these are individuals who they don't see their family members. Their family members don't live with them. Their guardian, or their loved ones, or the guardian doesn't live with them. So you want to make sure that they're being taken care of, that they have the right amount of clothing, that the guardian is paying out, that they are being shopped for. These are signs of neglect that you want to kind of pay attention to. Not kind of, but you do want to pay attention to. You're also going to keep an eye out for the kitchen, pantry, and refrigerator. These are, what you're going to look up for these is you're going to make sure that everything's clean. Also want to make sure that there's enough food. Food is being properly stored. I will never forget walking into a home. It was a group home, and there was flies. And I mean, like an infestation of flies. You walked into one room and there was 20 different flies in this room. They would land on the worker's face, and the workers wouldn't even swat it away. It was just kind of as if that was the norm. So going through the pantries, going through the cabinets, and going through the kitchen, I realized that the food was not being properly stored. They were cooking food in advance of a week. So they were cooking potatoes. They had potato, like mashed potatoes. They had rice and beans that were already pre-made. So they would make them on Sunday, and they would make it in, those little, they look like little trash can kind of bins that you can buy. They look like kind of like Oscar the Grouch trash cans, but they're really mini. So they had 3 of those, and that's what they filled the beans, the rice, and the potatoes in, the mashed potatoes. And they kept them in the cupboards. So it wasn't properly stored. It wasn't something that was like, okay, like I've left it out, or, for a day or something. No, this is something they made on Sunday, and it was expected to be eaten every dinner. So from Sunday to Saturday, they always had rice and they always had beans. And they, in their mind, the group homes manager felt that, it's, being properly stored. It has a lid on top. They had chains on it so that the individuals couldn't get into it because it was at the bottom of the cupboard. But that's where the infestation of flies were coming from. So it had us thinking, like, are you not even cleaning this out? Or they're just literally making it and putting some in and then keeping it in the pantry and the cupboards. It wasn't, Health and Human Services, I'm sure, would have had a field day with that. That was not something that was appropriate to at all be having. So things like that, that's why it's important to check around the kitchen, check around the pantry, looking to make sure that everything's there. You want to make sure they have enough food. You want to make sure that the food that they have is being properly stored. So just keep an eye out for that. If they have more than one fridge, you're going to want to look in both of them. So these are things to look for. This is a whole bunch of hazard. You can see that there are wires that are on the floor. If an individual was walking, they could trip. If somebody had a wheelchair or a walker, they would not be able to safely walk across this. There is like a rice cooker or a slow cooker that's over by the computer that could easily start a fire if it fell over. There's no sitting area. There looks like there's sodas in the back that have been there for I don't know how long. This is something to keep an eye out for. This looks like an individual who can't take care of themselves. Can we agree? I always, whenever I have a new person onboarding, I always like to tell them, I'm sure you guys have heard this saying, how can you love somebody if you can't love yourself? I like to think of that same principle, but how can you take care of yourself? How can you take care of somebody if you can't take care of yourself, right? It's true. Sometimes individuals don't mean to become neglectful or become messy like this. Sometimes, as we said, the guardian themselves can be aging, the care provider themselves can be aging, and these are signs of maybe not necessarily neglect or not some type of malice abuse, but these are signs that there might need to be a change of this guardianship. So here's another one. As you can see, there's no room for an individual to cook here. There are what looks like cleaning supplies at the bottom right-hand corner. There is food that's out. We don't know how long this food's been out. It wouldn't surprise me if we were to find out that there were rodent infestation or some form of bug infestation. So this is another thing to keep an eye out for. Things like this, we would definitely want to go ahead and let the courts aware that they're going to have a difficult case coming through, and we would go ahead and call APS on this situation as well, just so that, and also have a welfare check so they can get things done, especially right now. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but right now I do have to state this. This is important, and we'll get into this a little bit more in depth. Currently, with the pandemic going on, we are actually seeing an influx of abuse cases amongst all forms. So not just domestic violence, we're also seeing that with elderly abuse. There is a skyrocket in it. So these are things that we want to be aware of. These are things that we want to, that our program takes care of. We might not be APS, but we definitely do look to maintain that a guardianship does not need to have any changes. And this is something that would prompt a guardianship to have some type of change. Here's another one. There's no room for you to put anything down. This looks kind of a little bit better, but you can see that this is still a little giving me hoarding vibes. Something like this is not something that is appropriate to live in. There's another form, sorry, it's like flipped. But you can see that the refrigerator is barren. You can see that it's dirty. I'm sorry, it's flipped, but it's bring me back. I had one case, and I'll never forget this. It was the first time I ever had to call APS while I was here. And I walked in, they had 3 refrigerators, and each one of the refrigerators looked like this. They had not eaten in 4 days. They were so hungry that, makes me so sad thinking about it. They were so hungry that they were watching the Food Network channel to stimulate their brain to help ease their hunger pains. The mother was the guardian of the daughter, right? And the mother was already 95. She had already developed Alzheimer's, and the dementia with that was getting worse. She would leave cigarette trays and cigarette butts in the refrigerator. That's how bad her dementia was. She couldn't even remember the last time she went to the bank. She couldn't remember what the word bank meant. She actually told me, she was like, I can't remember the last time I went to, that place where you go and you ask for a credit card, that place where you go and you pull out a loan. What is that word called again? And I'm thinking, the bank, right? Like, you go to a credit union, you go to a bank. She's like, oh yes, I couldn't remember that term. So it wasn't that she was outright just being abusive. There was no malice intent. It's just, we noticed and we caught it that there needed to be a change in the guardianship. And in fact, a year from it now, the mother herself is going through a guardianship application with the other daughter. So she had 3 children, a son, a daughter, and then another daughter. The oldest daughter was the individual on guardianship. And then she had another daughter and a son. The son was a drug user who was actually stealing money from them. and would tell them that they didn't have any money for groceries. They didn't have any money for them to fix the car. No, that wasn't the case. He was stealing money from them so he could go binge out for 4 days until he was ready to come back home. He never came back home. So he was gone for the 4 days. They relied on him for food. They relied on him for transportation. He never came back. Honestly, it was so bad. They could not remember when the last time they went to go get their haircut was. They couldn't even remember the last time they were able to take a shower because the two of them they were elderly. They couldn't even shower by themselves. They needed to have the other one's help. And since he was never home to help them shower, they could not even remember when the proper, when they had a full proper shower. They could only tell me when the last time they washed themselves with I'm sorry, I can't even think of the English word, the smaller towels, So these are things that you want to keep an eye out for. And I'm going to tell you, the son gave me every excuse in the book. Oh, I'm out looking for work right now. That's why I'm not home. If they don't answer the door, that's why. So just keep an eye out for this stuff. Here's another one. Every time I go over this slide, I always feel like I can smell the refrigerator, like just by opening it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this smells terrible. Who knows how long this juice has been there for? We can see that right here in the corner at the top. It could be bad. What if somebody drank that and it got them sick? And they had food poisoning. Things like this are things to keep an eye out for. Here's another one. This is terrible. This is something else to keep an eye out for. You can see that there's trash everywhere. There's debris. Who knows? There's all this dirt. Who knows where this dirt is coming from? How it even got there? Are there holes in the ceiling? You can even see it looks like it's over at the bottom, where the couch meets the wall there's 2 bags on there, so it doesn't help, but over at the end, it looks like it doesn't even look like that shadow. It looks like the wall is just so dirty. Things like this. Another thing you want to keep an eye out for. Bathroom. This does not look like I would want to take a shower in it at all. You can see these are extreme abuses, or extreme cases. When you're going through this, and you guys are looking at the camera and you're looking through the individual's home, I want you guys to be really good at, and this is something to work on while you're here. This is why I do love the program. You got to work on your biases that we all have. We all have them. It doesn't matter. We have, especially being in America, we can have classist biases. So just because an individual is poor does not mean that they're trying. Just because an individual lives in a big, rich house does not mean that they are not hiding anything. Does not mean that they are clean. It just means that they can pay their bills and they have the money for it, and another individual isn't. I'm sure we all have had situations where you've gone over to a friend's house or a family member's house who isn't making as much money as you are, who might not have nicer things as you are, might not have the designer bags, might not have all of that, but you can tell that they are trying genuinely, and it's not dirty, it's clean. There might be a hole in the couch, but they put a blanket over it. You can tell that they have pride in where they live and they take care of it, and that they're coherent enough to take care of it. These are images in which that is not happening at all. So keep that in mind when you are doing this. These are the cases that these are situations that you're looking to report, not just because an individual is not making it financially. So just a thought. These are more situations. You can see there's hoarding at the bottom left-hand corner. You could definitely not walk. Somebody could sprain their ankle. Somebody could break a foot. I don't even know what's going on the top left-hand side. That is just trash everywhere. It looks like the same with the right-hand side. Would not surprise me if there were cockroaches. Would not surprise me of any type of infestation or droppings. I would not be surprised if I saw were to come across droppings with situations like this. All right. So the court monitor report. This is a report that is 1, 2, 3. It's 4 pages, front and back. So you're going to put the individual's cause number. This is their case number, the number that is associated with them at the courthouse. That is those are how we run with them too. So the individual's number here that we have for them is the same number as their cause number with the courts. You're going to put their ward's first and last name on the left-hand side on that line. Over where it says in probate court, you're going to put the appropriate court number so it can be filed appropriately, 1 or 2. You're going to put your name, the date of the visit, the time of the visit, the ward's ethnicity. So go ahead and fill that in. You can always ask them or ask the guardian how they feel about how to, because I know it's not as inclusive as I'd like for it to be. And we are working on that. But if you want to go ahead and just see what they identify as and then go out and put that there, the ward's date of birth, as well as their age, reason for guardianship. As I stated before, there are many different reasons for guardianship: intellectual disabilities, Alzheimer's, dementia, chronic alcohol, drug abuse, head injury. I see a lot of those. Other that can be what other reason? Minor. We have a couple minors. It's very rare that we see minors, but it does happen. I think honestly, there's like a handful of them in here. A lot of times, by the time I see the minor, they are getting ready to phase out. So that's that. The type of home they live in is also something that we take. So you can see here, state-supported living center, nursing home, personal care, foster home, group home, their own home, guardian's home, or the relative's home. The state hospital as well, the ward's address, and the ward's phone number. If the ward's phone number is different from the guardian's number, that's okay. You're going to put the ward's phone number over here. The guardian's number is going to be in another spot. The date of admission, if they've lived there for more than a year, you do not have to list why they moved. You're also going to collect how much they make per month and how much they pay per month. It can be a guesstimate. If they don't know, that's fine. For nursing homes, group homes, assisted living facilities, and the state hospital or the state supported school, you don't have to collect this information. They are audited by the state, and there's an automatic payee. So that is audited and is done on its own accord. We don't need to get that. The guardian's information, you're going to get the guardian's name and address, their phone number as well, their relationship to the ward. As I stated before, not everybody's relationship with the ward is by family. You'll have individuals who are under guardianship for Bexar County. I've had a couple of those. It's called the Bexar County Guardianship Program. You'll have individuals who are with another one is what is it called? Friends for Life. There are some people who have gone straight to guardianship and they were in the system, in the foster care system as kids. And so they don't have any family members. You'll see they'll get partnered with another group or an agency. If that's the case, you're going to put the agency name under the guardian and their address. Sometimes it's not here in the county. I think Friends for Life is in Lubbock, for example. And you're also going to get the case manager that worked there. So under guardian's name, you want the case manager. You want if they're with a group and not with an actual guardianship. So you want to get the case manager's name, or the QIDP is another term for that. QIDP is a little different, but kind of do the same objective. How often the guardian visits is also important. You want to ask that. Now, I have run across this with some group homes where they don't know. Case manager's like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea. You might want to call and get a hold of the care provider. Don't be surprised if you have to talk to more than one person. It's not always going to be smooth like butter. You might have to call a couple of the people to get the info. So that's something to keep in mind. But you do want to get that info because, like I said, they are supposed to be seeing them once a quarter. If they're not seeing them once a quarter, or they're not talking to them once a quarter, or not, doing some type of communication with them, how are they going to know the ward's needs? How are they going to know what the ward wants? How are they going to know anything about the ward? People change. So you got to keep that in mind. And that's something that the judges are looking for Because if it's something that is like, I don't know, for the last 2 years, they've only seen them once or twice, there's probably going to need to be a change to that guardianship, or that guardianship needs to be under investigation. So that's something. Also, we're going to look up the date of the last annual report filed. It is an obligation that the guardian submit an annual report. An annual report is a much more detailed court monitor report. We give them their annual reports. They can get the annual reports from the probate court's website, but we also, when we do our visits out of a courtesy, we go ahead and provide that documentation for them as well. So we can either mail it over to them or we can email it over to them. If they'd like, they're more than welcome to come into the office and pick one up as well, or they can go to the website and print one out. Oh, also, if the staff cannot provide a time for the most recent visit, please give that guardian a call. Do not hesitate and ask them, hey, when's the last time you saw them? When's the last time? What were the dates? You know, how frequently do you see them? Some guardians live out of state. With everything going on with COVID, it has been difficult for them. The judges understand that, but we are looking for also, have you FaceTimed with them? Have you talked to them on the phone? Have you been able to do meetings? They have meetings with the living facilities and such, usually quarterly. So you want to see about that as well. Okay. This is the physical and mental health aspect. We ask if they are able to communicate using voice. Can they talk? If not, are they able to communicate using nonverbal gestures? Are they able to walk with aid or assistance? Are they bedridden? Are they able to communicate? Are they wheelchair bound? These are all things you can answer if you see them. You don't have to ask them on the phone. You should be able to get this information from actually visiting with the ward. You want to ask also list of name of the ward's treating physician. Get their PCP, who, if they're seeing any specialists, some people like that. And if you don't get the name of the physicians, that's fine. You can go ahead, or if they don't know, I've had a couple of people that are like, I don't know who the physician is. They've seen him once and they see the PA, or however, you can get the clinic's name, that's fine. And then you can put on the side, individual sees multiple providers at this clinic. That's okay too. The judges are fine with that. Date of ward's most recent medical exam is something you're want to get. Their most recent dental exam and their most recent eye exam. You're also going to ask if they have any dates of any hospitalizations within the year. If so, the next follow-up question, describe any recommended treatment. That's where you're going to put what they recommended, what was the treatment for the hospitalization visit. So if an individual was not hospitalized within the last year and within those 12 months of when they were last seen, then you're going to put NA there because they didn't have any recommended treatment. Description of the ward's living conditions and circumstances. The judge is really evaluating if an individual is safe here. It's not, we used to have this where, and this is not what they want. They don't want to know how beautiful the home is. The court investigator, her name is Elaine Damian, she's for Court 1. We were talking one day, it was about a year ago, we had this conversation when I took on this role, and we discussed what were things that they wanted to see changed. And this was one of the aspects that she wanted us to have a better view of, a better understanding of that. And this is where that professional versus personal bias comes in. An individual can live in a beautiful home, and I'm sure we all know cases about this, right? Beautiful home, it's gorgeous. They could live in Stone Oak, the Dominion, Alamo Heights, King Williams District. It can be anywhere, Bernie, Stage Road, but they're still being abused. How do you think that sometimes it's like, how do you think that they are paying for this home? They're using the ward's money sometimes. Because remember, these individuals get SSI benefit checks. These people get disability checks. Some individuals were prior military and they have a head injury. So they have all of the VA benefits. They have all these different things. And you're thinking, well, how are they affording this gorgeous home? And yet the ward has no clothes. The ward has no food. Electricity is barely paid for. It's not nice and neat. It's a hot mess. It doesn't matter. I'm sure as we all know, living in one of the highest rates for domestic violence. It does not matter. Abuse comes in all classes. Abuse comes amongst all races. It is something that does not discriminate. So keep that in mind. You can have a beautiful house. You can have a beautiful backyard. It can be gorgeous. It can be extravagant. And there can still be disgusting skeletons in that closet. Sometimes the bigger the closet to hide in, the more skeletons you can put back there. So keep that in mind. We are here to make sure that the ward is safe, that there are no needed changes to any type of guardianship. Okay. Is the living area cluttered? This is kind of a subjective one. And the court monitor report is evaluating. We are trying to kind of switch it up a little bit, get some more questions. So we do want to switch up. With that being said, we want to switch up your mindset with some of these. You can take pictures. I've talked to the court investigators. They're fine with it. If you say that it is a cluttered area and you're seeing something like what we saw earlier or something along those lines that are kind of leave you a little worried, you can snapshot some photos. That's fine. You can screenshot them and you can submit them in with your report. Totally acceptable. If you need additional space to describe the clutter, you can go ahead and use a Word document and just go ahead and type it up. That's fine as well. The follow-up question is it a safety hazard? Yes or no? If you guys can imagine, some people are moving sometimes, whether it be out of state, across town, or whatever. So it's going to be cluttered, but it's not a safety hazard, right? So those are things that you want to keep in mind. Then you can put that, yes, it's cluttered, but they are moving, so it's to be expected. No safety hazard issues here. Are there signs of rodent infestation is another one. Are there any odors in the residency associated with animals or human feces, urines, sickness, rotting food? Okay, so for this one, we're doing everything virtually, so it's kind of difficult. What you're going to put here is unable to assess this or unable to conduct this question, able to assess this question because of virtual visitation, something along those lines. You'll put that there. And you can kind of tell something that needs smelling. Like I said earlier in that other photo, you just looking at it, I could feel like I could smell it. Like I was like wafting the scent to my nose. So that's one thing. And then, is there ample supply of food in the home? This pertains to all types of homes. You're going to want to know, and you're going to want to see that. That's why this part seeing the kitchen is important. Seeing the refrigerator is important. You want to see, is there enough? Now, with group homes, I will say sometimes it gets to their 2-week period and it gets the food kind of dwindles down. You can tell that there's food there. However, you can tell that they're probably not as stocked up as they'd like to be. Ask them. Or have them tell you, get it out of them to see, is this a day that they go shopping, or are they going shopping tomorrow? What's going on? What does their shopping pattern look like? Usually group homes have a specific day out of the week that they go shopping for them. Usually once everybody gets paid and everything's settled out, they can go the group home managers will go out to HEB and they already have a list of what individuals like, or they'll have a whole meal plan and they'll go do the shopping. So that's something to keep in mind. But you're going to want to get that out of them. Is the refrigerator clean? Yes or no? This is something else that you want to evaluate. Once again, the smoke alarms in the home. This pertains to private, foster, board, and care homes. Is there fire extinguisher available as well? Something you're going to answer. This section does not pertain to nursing homes. As you noticed, it was foster, private, group, board, and care homes, so like care provider homes. But nursing homes, once again, they get audited by the state on a monthly basis. So they have their own criteria that they have to go through. So when you're checking for food, ask the ward to show you the fridge and what types of snack they like. That's a helpful hint. It helps when you do that because you're getting to communicate with the ward. You're able to kind of evaluate them a little bit more. Also, some of them truly enjoy showing off. their home. They like to be a part of it. They know that you're there for them. So that is something to keep in mind. And then you kind of get to assess if their nutritional habits are being met, or their nutritional needs are being met. So that's something else. That was an extra one. Okay, so the ward's social, intellectual, and educational conditions. Name of the day program. What's important with this too is ask the ward and the guardian or the care provider if they are currently going to the group home, or currently going to the day program, or the day hab is another name that it's called. The judges are asking that we get this information. They're kind of curious, and so is the county. They want to see exactly how many, I think they want to know how many of these homes are kind of operating and how many people are being seen, or if they're being used. This information is given to county commissioner courts. So stuff that they're trying to kind of keep track of with the data going on right now. Ask them if they're going to school. Individuals on guardianship programs, or people who have IDD, who are born with it, or just, I guess, established when they get younger. But when they're in school for high school, they don't stop going to school until they're 26, I believe. So instead of graduating at 18, they graduate at 26 with their life skills and the high school diploma. So ask them. You'll be surprised. Some people are going to school. Name of paid work program. Some individuals are working. Ask them if they're working. If they're not working, ask them if the reason why they're not working is because of COVID. So that's something else too. What they're interested in, you can kind of gather that information by communicating with the ward. When they show you their room, you can kind of figure out what they're into. I'm a Hello Kitty fanatic, so whenever I see all of the other, I ever go to individuals' homes and they show me their, I'm like, oh my God, Hello Kitty. And they'll go on. Sometimes they'll just tell you, you'll learn. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea she had a TV show. Oh my gosh, I had no idea this. So you get to know about them. It's fun. It's really fun. Like I said, it's an amazing way to communicate, to engage in the community here and with a marginalized group. So list all of the individuals that you have had contact with during the visit. So who's living there? Ooh, that takes me back. So hold on, let's finish this one real quick. So with this one, you're gonna want to list everybody that you've made contact with. Even if it's just somebody who's there visiting. You might have a cousin or an uncle who says that they're there, they're just there to hang out, and turns out they're actually living there. And you had no idea. So you want to keep track of that stuff. Going back to actually this. When you come to the description of the ward's living environment, you also want to list how many people are living there. If they're living in a group home, are there 2 other people who are living in the group home? Did they get along well? Did they not get along well? Is their the mom's boyfriend living there, or what's the situation like? The judges like to know that. So that's something else I'm meant to list there. Ask for the title of those individuals if they're not a relative or the guardian. So like I said, so-and-so's uncle's living there, or so-and-so's uncle was there. Who is he? Oh, I don't know. We can make up a name. Jose Medina. So, okay, Jose Medina lives here. Who are you? Oh, I'm the uncle. Okay, you went ahead and just put it next to it. So that's something to think about. This is the back end of the report. You're gonna put the cause number, the guardianship's name, because you got to get filed. So you don't want an accidental, it got, taken out or something, missing a page. This is where you're going to list if there are any further actions needed. The court doesn't like to see any blank spaces. So an additional comments, if there's nothing, if I have to check off the first one, no further action needed. So there's nothing else that I think needs to be done except for their annual report. Then I'll just put ward seems safe, happy, and full of content and loved here in the home. I don't see any needed changes at this moment in time. If you think that a guardian ad litem, which we'll get into a little bit later, is something that needs to be brought in, or a successor guardian or something needs to be brought up, I would go ahead and add this here. Another thing I like to do with this part is if I know that, and it doesn't just matter if they're aging, if the guardian's aging, but if at all points, one of my favorite things to ask, and I think that everybody should ask this, is, do you have a will set up? The reason why is not to bait them and hook them so they can come get a will with our guardianship attorneys and our probate attorneys. No, that's not at all what it is. I would like to know that, and I like the judges to know that, and the court investigators like to know, in case something happens to this guardian, what's going to happen? What, God forbid, this guardian gets sick, God forbid, gets COVID, had no will, had no successor guardianship lined up, nothing. How do we know on our end, other than doing a whole new court investigation, getting a guardian ad litem assigned to this case? How do we know what's the proper setup and what's the best setup for the ward? So I like to ask those questions of, do you have a will? Have you looked into a successor guardianship at all stages, no matter what the ages of the guardian? Because God forbid something happen. It's just safer than sorry. So that is something that I do also add in the additional comments. Spoke with guardian about obtaining a will, going to give information for Catholic Charities to, you know, them. So we have two attorneys here, Chance and Allie. They can all, I'll go ahead and get this information when I do the data aspect of it, and I go ahead and submit this over, or the cause number and the name, to our attorneys and their assistant, the legal assistant, Ms. Lane David, and she will go ahead and give them a call and tell them, hey, we saw that you had a court monitor report, you were interested in getting a will done, you were interested in getting a successor guardianship. Is there any way we can get you started with that? We, here at Catholic Charities, we are income-based when it comes to those services, so they get a bit of a better deal here. There are other agencies or other nonprofits that do the same thing, like Rio Grande Legal Aid is another one, and Texas Rural, sorry, it's a difficult word for me to pronounce. Texas Rural Legal Aid is another as well. But we are contracted with the county, so we're here to get them. You have our numbers here. And if our guardians, for whatever reason, can't, our guardianship attorneys, for whatever reason, cannot provide those services for them, or they'd like to shop around, we can give them the info for others. I'm trying to think. Another thing I like to close off with is I like to ask them if they are in need of any resources. And then I don't just mean guardianship resources. I mean like all kinds of resources, especially if I notice that the food is running low for them. I mean, right now, as you guys know, food pantry is kind of tough. The economy is kind of tough on people. It's affecting everybody, or it's affecting most people. So just asking those questions, I'm all about it. Knowledge is power. So if they need help, we have those resources. We can give them those resources, even if it's not Catholic Charities ourselves. Nonprofits, we're here to help each other. We're here for one common good, and that's to help the community flourish and do better in whatever our specific little niche is. So if we don't have the services for them, I'm sure we can find somewhere else to help them out, whether it's Any Baby Can or it's any nonprofit. So keep that in mind too. I also asked them if they need if they don't need any help, do they have any friends that need any help? Because sometimes they don't want to tell you that they need help. They'll use oh, I don't need help, but my friend needs help. And you know, we've all been that person before. We've all done that, pride. So go ahead and ask those, because we never know who's suffering in silence. So just an FYI. At the end of the report, this is still on the back page, you're going to date the day that you signed it, right? So you're going to put this. So this date on the back might not match the date that you did the visit. That's fine. As long as it's within the 14-day grace period, you're all good. You're going to print your name on the right-hand side, sign it, and then it needs to be notarized. So I'm a notary. You can bring it to me here at the office. I can meet you. That's fine. I don't mind. We can meet up at Dairy Queen or wherever is best for you, and I can get this stuff from you, notarize it, make sure everything's good, be on your way. That's that's fine with me. So that does have to be done. Okay, key reminders. If you are going to write out your visitation, your report, you're going to only use blue. Guys, I cannot talk today. You are only going to use blue ink. It's how we can tell the difference between the original and the copy. The original goes down to the courthouse and put in that individual file, and then I keep the copy. You're going to sign the reports when we meet up. Do not leave anything blank. The date of admission, you do not need income for assisted living or nursing homes. Most importantly, the ward must be present and assign roles. So this is the annual report packet. It has a Bill of Rights of the ward, the JBCC registration form. If it's a newer guardianship, it doesn't need a JBCC registration form, but you can keep it in there, but they don't need to do it. Anybody who has had their guardianship from 2017 until present has already filled out the JBCC form. It's a part of their application process. Duties as a guardian of the person, that'll also be included. They're going to want their sample annual report and condition of well-being, and then a copy of a blank annual report, which they can get from the court's website, or we can give it to them. This first page that I'm showing you right now is going to be given to the guardian. We used to have this sign and then just give it to them, but we don't need this copy. The rights of the ward is here. Each one of you guys is going to have your own annual report digital copy. I will send that over to you guys. So don't worry about that. You can look into this a little bit more in depth, and I recommend that. But for the sake of our video presentation, and our orientation, we're not going to go into that right now, but you can take a look at that. Duties of the guardian, these are their obligations of what they have signed up to do. If they do not do any of these, then they are in compliance of their guardianship, and it could pose a threat to their guardianship, and there could be possible changes. This is the sample of the annual report. This is the original of the annual report. Like I said, it's just a more detailed version of the court monitor report. This is the JBCC form. And this is some positive feedback. I absolutely love working with this program. I'm San Antonio born and raised. My parents are from San Antonio. My grandparents are from San Antonio. So it's interesting to have this job because I can personally, anecdotally speaking, it's fun to me because I get to meet new people. The wards are super friendly. You get some really touching stories about members of your community that you would not have any interaction with had it not been participating with this program. It's honestly super rewarding. It really is. I don't know, maybe it's just because I personally enjoy working with members in my community. So that's something. And of course, these are members of my community that are all around. Guardianships don't just affect a specific population of people. All types of people are on guardianship. It's not judgmental. So you get to really meet a bunch of different people. You get to take a new aspect of the community health. And you get to actually schedule your visits on your own days. So this is something that is flexible with your time. If you want, you can only see people on Tuesday morning, you can only see people on Tuesday morning. That's totally fine. Or however it works for you according to your work and school schedule. Okay, so that is this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now so we can go over some questions before we jump into APS, because there is a whole nother slideshow I have to give you guys as well. It's this one. Okay. Do you guys have any questions before we move forward?
I have a few questions.
Go for it.
So when you were talking about as far as like making sure you get a hold of either a loved one with like a friend count in that aspect, I mean, who exactly would be considered like a loved one other than family?
Someone they're comfortable with. So it could be a friend.
Okay.
that they see as a loved one. It could be a family member, whoever they feel comfortable with coming in, that's fine.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And then as far as like, so after you've kind of gone through everything and you see that there are some circumstances that are questionable as far as any kind of like abuse or the home being kind of mismanaged, the next like reasonable step is contacting adult protective services.
Yes. So the best thing for you to do would actually be contact Adult Protective Services and then contact me right afterwards.
Okay. And then so like after that step, what is the action after that?
APS will start investigating.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go into, this is perfect question, because we're going to go into APS and that'll also have a whole rollout of how they handle it. I always anticipate you to be dealing with APS for like maybe not 2 weeks. You don't know when they're going to call you. They'll go ahead and give you a call sometimes at random times. I personally haven't had any APS reports to call in since really the beginning of the pandemic. I had an individual, and I'll get more into her case because she's one of my prime examples for APS, about what was it? She I don't know, it was a weird one, but we had gone in, pandemic had just hit. I think we called APS in April. Coronavirus hit in March. So people started getting sick. And that was something that's where I'm like, anticipate the 2 week thing, because you don't know, an APS social worker might be sick and then they have to give their caseload to somebody else. So that person that new manager or case manager will go ahead and give you a call to get more updated info. So that's why I'm like, give it that 2 week, but you'll probably get more than one call. And if there are children involved, there could be kids involved, you'll also get CPS involved.
Okay. So as far as that, have you guys had any issues? Is like, not that this like, it's not that it's intentional, but like papers and kind of like files get mismanaged, or like certain things don't get in, like for example, if like it's going from one caseworker to the next, maybe this piece of information didn't get transferred with the rest of it. Have you guys any issues with
No, not that I've
Okay.
I haven't had any. Thank God. I haven't. I've had a couple. Well, like I said, that happened where I had to call her, and I'd done the APS report. We got some of the info. Our very first provider, case manager, social worker got sick. And then because she was sick, she had to, of course, transfer all of our reports over. Now, with cases going up with child abuse and domestic violence and AP, and there are more and more, there is an influx of APS reports. There has been a lot more. I have seen that they are, I don't want to say, they're overwhelmed a little bit more, but I haven't seen it, affecting my clients. So there's that, but be patient with them. That's what I always think. Because they're, as I said, they have an influx of individuals going on right now, and they're trying their best as hard as they can. So you might get them to call back and they might be like, hey, I know we talked earlier, but, or, 2 days ago, but I just had another question about this and I kind of wanted to, and they might peruse a little bit more. You will always be informed about what's going on. When you file an APS report, you're also going to get the courts involved. That's why I get involved. So you're going to call me and then I'll get the courts involved to let them know, hey, you have an APS report that's coming your way. We went ahead and filed it, and this is the contact information for the caseworker. This is the, all of that. And then all three of us are kind of in this loop. And once everything's done, the caseworker will actually tell you, hey, yes, this is what happened. The board was removed from the home, or we went ahead and we are pressing charges on this and this and this. Another one I've seen is, hey, we did it. There wasn't much we can do. So we went ahead and gave them the resources and are going to do a follow-up. If they don't follow up with the resources, then yes, we have to further on. So you're always included in the last steps, so you can add it to their file.
Okay, I was just curious. So it sounds like you're going to be the little person that I go to, or if anybody in general. So
yeah, this position allows me to be a liaison amongst us APS.
That's a good word. That's what I was looking for.
yeah, it is. It's, I guess, the perfect word for it, actually. Yeah, I work at that nice little hub That way you guys, because it's not fair for you guys to have to be, on top of it when you're also trying to do other reports as well. So
That's what I was curious. I was like, how meticulous do you have to be? You know what I mean? As far as like all the following up.
yeah, use enough, pretty meticulous, not
Yeah.
terribly.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You're doing such a good job. Those are all my questions.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, when we speak with a client, what will be our credential? Like, how would they know for not just scammers, talking to them? So how
So
would they
you
know that we have the authority to get that information?
Yes. So within their charts, there are court orders as well. So, and I've seen this even before COVID. I've seen this where people are like, "No, I don't know who you are. The courts never told me." The courts, first of all, the courts always tell them. They tell them this is something they have to do. They even tell the attorney they have to forward over the information, so they know. They might forget, but they know. Just provide them with that court order. It's always signed by the judge. The beauty of a court order, and it's my favorite things about it, is a court order for this specific type of court order. It doesn't have a time limit. We do request a new one every year just for the auditing purposes. Right now, I will say it's really difficult getting court orders signed and back. Judges are doing other things. The elections are up for them. They're getting ready for that whole beautiful thing. So they're kind of a little, I don't like the term preoccupied, but they have a lot going on. So if you don't get an order right then and there, that's fine. You can use an old order because line item 1 states that the court order never change or ceases to change unless there is another court order that has been introduced to stop that court order, if that makes sense. So that's one way. If they keep refusing to, then from there you'll get in contact with me, and I will go ahead and once again be that liaison, call over to the appropriate courts and let them know so the investigator can get on them. And then worst comes to worst, we just go ahead and do an unable to assess, do a welfare check with the sheriff's office, and if they continue to, no longer comply, then we'll just go ahead and change the guardianship. So I hope I answered that.
You did perfectly, actually.
Thank you.
Another question, when we note a deficiency, so do we have the authority like to say, hey, you can fix that deficiency, like I'm gonna visit you like in 2 weeks, or do I just like report it, jot it down in the report and submit it to you guys and take it to court and it's up to them to decide? So
The latter. You're gonna do the latter. Yeah. Now if there are things where you see, let's say you see something and it just it's something where you're like, I think a guardian ad litem needs to be in play. And one of those deficiencies could be like I was telling you the story earlier about the mother who had dementia. That's something you can just recommend to the court, and the court themselves will look into it and they'll say, you know what, let's go ahead and do a court investigation. I think you might be right. And they'll let them know what needs to be changed. All we do is just write up the recommendations. Whether it's, do you think there needs to be a change in the ad litem, or it could even be that you think there needs to be a change in the home environment. So, or the living conditions. So let's say Bobby lives in a group home with individuals, and he's at a capacity of a 14-year-old, right? He might be a 50-year-old man, but he has the intellectual capacity of a 14-year-old, and he's in a home with intellectual capacities of 8 or 9-year-olds. Bobby might start acting up, and maybe he has behavioral problems. I've seen this before where that ward has a behavioral problem because they're not being stimulated through the conversations that they're having. They're not being, it's like, imagine you have a roommate, right? A bunch of roommates, and you live in a house and you're not being stimulated by your roommates and you're living with them and they're bums. You're trying to go to school, you're trying to do whatever you need to do. And they're dragging you down and holding you down, and it becomes frustrating. You would want to move out. So it's the same thing with the ward. That living condition is not appropriate for him. So you can go ahead and recommend, hey, I think that, Bobby needs to be moved out because he's not having the appropriate stimulation, or he's not, it's becoming a nuisance. He's picking on the other individuals, or the other individuals are picking on him. That's a situation too. You'll see a lot. I've seen that a lot, where the ward is being bullied by other individuals in the group home. Okay, well, he should not be being bullied or harassed. He's got to be moved out now. So that's something else you can recommend, and then they'll go ahead and look into that. And you can also go ahead and do your follow up with the guardian and say, hey, I think that this needs to be changed, or did you notice this, or kind of bring it up to their attention and see what they like to do. Does that make sense? So it just varies on the situation, kind of what you can do, but everything's going to be recommended over to the courts.
Sorry, just one last question.
Go for it. As many as you throw, so many questions at me. I love it.
Yeah. So, like, I got that question when you told me that there's like a ward that has like a drug addict son or something like that. So in that case, like if there's like a risk factor that like the inspector faces, like I know we're COVID now, everything is virtual, but in those cases, like, does it happen that like the people living in the house trying to harass the person who's trying to inspect or something like that?
I haven't seen any of that, but I've had people who refused, even with a court order. It was pre-COVID. I can't remember. It was the brother. I think he was the older brother of the ward. They lived together in an apartment, and I had called him and I tried to tell him, hey, we're trying to do a court order, or I'm trying to do a visitation, and he refused over the phone. So I was like, okay, well, I have a court order, submitted the court order, but refused to acknowledge the court order because the court order was a year old. But like I had stated before, they don't age out. You can make a new court order for an existing court order just to keep it up to date, I guess, like for files and auditing sake. But really, you don't even need it. So I had tried to explain this to him, and I showed him in line item 1, and then I showed him in line item 2, and I, showed him all of this in the clause. There's a specific clause in line 1 that states that it doesn't age. And there is not going to be a change to this court order unless a new court order says so, and he still refused. So with that situation, I went to the house when he was home. You could tell he was home because you could hear it. With that situation, I just went ahead and let the court investigator know. And the court investigator themselves went with the sheriff. So we partner hand in hand. As you can imagine, working with the court system, you do have to rely on the police force to help you enforce some of those rules. Because we can do the jurisdiction, the judicial aspect of it. However, we can't go down to somebody's house and then create, this force. We have to have that police presence with us. So they'll go ahead and do that. So there are situations like that, and you are more than welcome to do a welfare check. I'm trying to get a better communication down at the Bexar County precinct, as well as the city PD with SAPD. However, it's working. COVID has been like a little bit of a pauser for, I think, for everybody. So yeah, we can do that too. We can always just call up, depending on where they live though. So hope I answered that.